Nate Diaz's eye. Nate Diaz needed 25 stitches and 2 deep cuts around his eyes after his defeat to George Masvidal at UFC 244. After a thrilling back-and-forth clash between two of MMA's veteran stars, a battered Diaz was told by doctors his eye was too badly busted up to continue. After the fight, UFC chief Dana White posted a photo of Diaz's war wounds with one cut above and one below his right eye. White captioned it, "These cuts were much worse than they looked on TV." As both men prepared for a fourth round of war, the cage-side doctor took a look at Diaz's bloodied and cut eye. After several moments of uncertainty, referee Dan Miragliotta reluctantly waved the bout off after instructions from officials. It meant WWE icon The Rock crowned Masvidal with the baddest MF belt via contentious TKO. Despite losing the battle, Diaz insisted the war is not over as he demanded a rematch. Knowing Nate Diaz, he was upset about the stoppage and told us he could have kept on fighting, despite his whole left eyebrow hanging over his eye. This definitely went into the books as one of the OG baddest moments in MMA. Well guys, that was number 10 of our top 10 worst injury list, and there are plenty to come, so stick around until the end. Number 1 will be something you probably can't look at for too long. My name is Matt from Primal MMA, and I'd love to hear from you which is the worst injury in MMA history you know of. So tell me in the comments and I'll personally reply back to you. Now let's continue with the list. Number 9. Nogueira's snapped arm. When two of the best heavyweight grapplers go against each other, chances of seeing a limb break are pretty high. This is exactly what we witnessed when Frank Mir tapped the Brazilian legend Antonio Big Nog Rodrigo Nogueira in a tight kimura following an intense ground battle. Nogueira attempted to escape the submission and refused to tap, but it was too tight and resulted in Mir snapping his arm, his right humerus. Despite it being one of the worst injuries in UFC history, Dana White called it submission of the century. Nogueira recovered from his arm injury and returned to the octagon less than a year later. He's competed 4 times since his loss to Frank Mir. Number 8. Corey Hill's noodle leg. The saying, snap like a twig, takes on a new meaning when you're 6 foot 4 inches tall, compete at lightweight, and get your leg completely snapped in half. This is what happened to Corey Hill, who broke his right leg while throwing a kick that was blocked by his opponent, Dale Hart. The injury is very similar to what happened to Anderson Silva against Chris Weidman at UFC 168, but predates it by 5 years. Recovering from this injury was expected to take 12 to 18 months, and Hill stated that he was grateful for the support he received from the UFC and feels indebted to them. Hill has competed professionally 11 times since then. Number 7. Mark Hominick's hematoma. When the UFC added new lighter weight classes to its roster, Jose Aldo became the first ever UFC featherweight champion. He was set for his first title defense against Mark Hominick at UFC 129. This also happened to be the largest UFC event to date, with over 55,000 fans in attendance. Hominick was the hometown fighter, so it's no surprise that fans were left gasping at the sight of the gruesome swelling on his forehead. Aldo managed to land some brutal ground and pound that caused Hominick to develop a huge hematoma on his forehead. Hominick made a full recovery and went on to compete 3 more times following his fight against Jose Aldo at UFC 129. He is now retired from competing in professional MMA, but remains involved in charity work and anti-bullying programs with other UFC fighters. Number 6. John Jones's dislocated toe. This grisly injury came for Jones when he was stuffing a takedown from Chael Sonnen in 2013. He rolled over on the toe and dislocated it, ripping it away from the skin. Fortunately for Bones, he finished his opponent later in the first round. Afterwards, the extent of the damage became clear, and he gave an interview with Joe Rogan from a stool while medical staff worked on him. Jones was ultimately more concerned about the injury ruining his holiday plans than the pain it was causing. He said, "I was supposed to go to Jamaica after this. That's not going to happen." Number 5. Matt Mitrione's fractured orbital. Fractured orbital bones are not uncommon in the UFC, but the outward appearance of Mitrione's was alarming. He took a heavy shot from Travis Brown in their 2016 encounter, and a golf ball-shaped lump emerged. Later in the contest, Mitrione had been poked in the eye on more than one occasion and had trouble seeing out of it. To make matters worse, the eye wasn't his only problem. The heavyweight also sustained a dislocated shoulder when slammed into the mat by his opponent. A tough night at the office. Number 4. Joanna Jędrzejczyk's alien head. The fight was out of this world, and so was Jędrzejczyk's head. The Polish strawweight suffered extraterrestrial-like swelling of her head. She went 5 brutal rounds with Sang Weili and endured a massive hematoma in the early stages of the title showdown. The injury itself stemmed from an accidental headbutt, but she plowed on regardless to play her part in a fight for the ages, losing on the scorecards. It was hardly surprising that Jędrzejczyk looked unrecognizable given the sheer output of both women. In total, 783 combined strikes were thrown from both competitors. The swelling took 5 days to go down, and the defeated fighter underwent minor surgery from a plastic surgeon on her ear. Number 3. Antonio Nogueira's broken arm. There was something particularly horrendous about this one. Frank Mir slowly wrenched the Brazilian's arm when securing the Kimura in the first round of their UFC 140 fight, and everyone watching knew what was coming. For some reason, Nogueira refused to tap out, and the inevitable happened. His arm snapped. His surgeon later said the fracture began in the middle of the bone and extended to the elbow region. Unfortunately, the radial nerve, one of the main nerves lending a feeling of power to the hands, was damaged. Number 2. Belal Muhammad's eye poke. Eye pokes are a regular occurrence inside the octagon, but rarely are they so severe that the fight is called. Back in March 2021, Muhammad jumped at the chance to take on British star Leon Edwards in what was the biggest contest of his career. But it ended in disaster for both men, with Edwards accidentally poking Muhammad in the eye and the doctors ruling that the underdog could not continue. Replays and images of the incident showed just how nasty it was. The American's eye began to leak blood, and he also required stitches. Edwards has since confirmed a fight with Nate Diaz, while Muhammad has had to lick his wounds and await another opportunity. Number 1. Chris Weidman's double leg break. Weidman had a new lease of life, moved his family down to South Carolina, and was ready to launch into a final title tilt of his career. But just 17 seconds into his UFC 261 clash with Uriah Hall, disaster struck. He landed a low kick and broke his leg in 2 places. The replay was only shown twice on the broadcast, so grotesque was the footage of his lower leg flapping around. It was a clean break of both his fibula and tibia bones, and Weidman showed the extent of the damage when he shared a pre-surgery x-ray. It'll be a long road back to competition from here for the former UFC middleweight champion, but he's seen firsthand how it's possible to come back from this kind of injury. And with that gruesome leg break, we end today's list, guys. Hope you made it until the end without having to gag or close your eyes. These are the top 3 comments from our last video. Make sure to leave a comment if you want to get featured in the next one. Please like and subscribe if you like this video, and click the video end screen now to continue watching.